Hey everyone, today we're going to become backyard architects for one of the most clever and, let's be honest, charming birds out there, the chickadee. And by the time we're done here, you'll have the complete blueprint to not only attract them, but to help their little families thrive. You're going to get a front row seat to their incredible nesting process. So let's get right into it.
You know when you see a tiny bird just going to town, chipping away at a dead tree or maybe an old fence post? You ever wonder what in the world is going on there? Well, you're not actually watching destruction, you're watching creation. That's a chickadee, building a home pretty much from scratch. And it's a fascinating process we're going to break down together.
And to make sure we've got all our facts straight, we're leaning on the expertise of the folks over at Feathered Guru. We'll be using their insights as our guide today, so you know you're getting the best, most accurate info out there.
Okay, so first things first, it all begins with this search. Sometime between April and early July, chickadees are on a mission. And they're not just looking for any old spot. Oh no, they are super strategic cavity nesters, and believe me, they have a very specific checklist for their dream home.
You see, as cavity nesters, they're looking for an enclosed space. Out in the wild, that could be an old woodpecker hole or a nice rotting stump. But in our backyards, well, their real estate search gets a little more creative. They'll check out fence posts, the corner of an old shed, or, you guessed it, a well-placed nest box. For a chickadee, the magic words are simple: safe, dry, and just the right size. Now you might think a natural spot is always best, right? Well, not necessarily. While a natural cavity is definitely good, a perfectly designed nest box can actually be even better. Why? It all comes down to control. With a box, you can guarantee the entrance hole is too small for bigger predators, and the whole structure can offer way better protection from rain and wind.
So, knowing what they're looking for is half the battle. Now, let's talk about how we can provide it. This is where you, the backyard architect, get to step in and create a 5-star chickadee residence that they'll want to come back to year after year.
And here is the blueprint. It's a pretty simple 4-step process. First, the entrance hole. Now this is absolutely crucial. It has to be exactly 1 1/8 inches in diameter. Any bigger and you're inviting predators in. Second, add some bedding. You want to fill the box about halfway with wood shavings. This lets the female satisfy her natural instinct to dig out and really make the nest her own. Third, mounted securely, somewhere between 5 and 15 feet off the ground. And last but not least, location, location, location. Put it near some trees or shrubs so the parents have a safe, covered flight path to the nest.
All right, so once the home is picked out and ready to go, the real magic begins. Now we get to follow the entire nesting cycle, and it is a truly remarkable journey that transforms an empty box into a launch pad for a whole new generation of chickadees.
So, the female does most of the nest building, and that can take up to 2 weeks. Then, after she lays the eggs, she'll incubate them for another couple of weeks. Once they hatch, oh man, both parents kick into a non-stop 2-week feeding frenzy. And then finally, around week 7, the young ones fledge. They leave the nest. The whole amazing process is over and done in about 6 to 7 weeks. It happens so fast.
Now, the chicks that hatch are what scientists call altricial. It's just a fancy word that means they are born completely helpless. We're talking featherless, blind, and totally reliant on their parents for every little thing, from warmth to food. And it's this extreme vulnerability that makes the parents' job so intense and so important.
And how intense is it? Get ready for this. To keep their helpless chicks fed, a single pair of chickadee parents can make up to 70 food trips in a single day. Can you imagine? That's a relentless, sun-up-to-sundown hunt for insects and caterpillars. It is just an incredible display of parental dedication.
So let's just quickly break down those key numbers. A typical clutch will have about 6 to 8 eggs. The incubation period is about 12 to 13 days, and once they hatch, the nestlings need another 16 to 18 days of care before they're ready to fly. These are really the core stats that drive that whole nesting cycle we talked about.
Okay, so with a vulnerable family raising their young right in your backyard, your role kinda shifts. You go from architect to guardian. And honestly, this is where your careful planning can make all the difference between a successful nest and a failed one.
Protecting that nest is absolutely crucial. A little metal guard around the entrance hole, that'll stop squirrels from chewing it bigger. A baffle on the mounting pole, that keeps raccoons and snakes from climbing up. And you know, one of the single best things you can do is to keep cats indoors, especially during this really fragile nesting season.
But the most important rule of all, this one's on us. As tempting as it is to get a little peek inside, you just have to watch from a distance.
Grab some binoculars. If you get too close or check too often, you can really stress out the parents, so much so that they might just abandon the nest entirely. Your job is to be a respectful observer.
Now, protecting one nest is fantastic, but the ultimate goal here is to think bigger. Let's talk about how to turn your entire yard into a year-round chickadee haven, one that supports them long after this one nesting cycle is over.
And creating that haven is probably simpler than you think. Keep your feeders stocked with sunflower seeds and suet. They love that stuff. If you have a dead tree or a snag that isn't a safety risk, just leave it. That's prime real estate for them. Plant some native shrubs to give them cover and attract all those tasty insects they need. And maybe most importantly, please avoid using pesticides. Let the chickadees be your natural pest control.
And the reward for all this effort? Well, as the experts at Feathered Guru put it so well, you get front row seats to one of nature's most charming nesting spectacles. And it's a really amazing feeling to know you played a part in making it all happen.
So I'll just leave you with this thought. Now that you've seen how simple it can be to provide a safe and supportive place for these amazing little birds, the only real question left is, could your yard be their next home? Thanks for tuning in.